Today we will look at sort function in Oracle BI Publisher report. This is a simple function and as the name says, it helps to sort the records. We have a XML which has 3 records with name and last updated. We will try to sort these records. Let's load the sample XML and loop through the records. Add the name and then last updated field. Alright, so let's sort first on name. So sort field, that is name. By default, it sorts alphabetically and in ascending order. However, we can mention descending, and also we can give the data type, that is whether the field is a text or a number or a date. It's not mandatory, but we can say text. Right, Michael is comes first alphabetically, right? We can change it to ascending. This will be by default. Even if you don't mention it, it will sort ascending order, right? Now let's change to last updated. We'll say it is date, right? Right, so Emily, the date is 12th March. So that comes first, then John, then Michael. Because John, the last updated date is before, 1 second before Michael record. Now we can change this to descending. Right? So now Michael's record is the first one. However, if sometimes this sort on date particularly doesn't work, we can just format the date to a canonical form, that is YYY format. So we'll say format date, this last updated to YY and then DD, and the input format is in DD YYY. As you can see here, right, it is DD YYY, and then we just need to give locale and time zone. Okay, now preview. Okay, so it is not sorting correctly. Michael record should have come first. So that's because we have not considered the time, that is hours, minutes and seconds, which we have in the XML, right? So we can add here HH, and SS, right? Now let's see. Right now it is coming correctly because we have considered the time also. So this is if the date sort doesn't work, then we can go this way. Otherwise, by default, if it works, then it's fine. So that's about sort function. Thanks.